Hello and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. This one is captaincy model for Game Week 9. We'll have a look through the Game Week 8 results and then get onto the Game Week 9 numbers. So as you can see on screen, not the best week this week for the model. Once again, Haaland ruined it for us. So he was obviously top with Wolves away. Didn't manage to get an attack in return and finished on 2 points, unfortunately. Got the X minutes right, although that wasn't particularly a tough one. He was, unless they were kind of quite a few goals up, he was probably going to play the whole game. Salah in second, not that far behind actually Haaland, and I was quite surprised when recording last week's video. I was quite surprised how close it actually was, but once again the model was good in that respect. So Salah with 12 points. Bruno Fernandes was uncharacteristically high, as we mentioned last week, but he did manage an attack in return. I've put it green or because he did get an attack in return, although 5 points isn't much. As I mentioned last time, if you thought that Son's minutes were higher, so I think I had a look, and if we put Son to 80 and if we put Foden to 80, then they'd have both jumped above Fernandes into number 3. So, and that's kind of the problem with me looking at these numbers and recording earlier in the week, because I recorded this before Ange Postecoglou's press conference. If I recorded this after, I would have had his minutes at somewhere around 80, so he would have been third. But I have to get this video out earlier, so I have to record it on a Tuesday-ish, so there'll always be little wrinkles like that. But like I say in the video, if you think the minutes are higher, then by all means kind of use your own head to work it out. Last week, obviously, there was one where, Son and Foden, I did actually look beforehand what they'd be on 80 minutes, so I'll do that if there's any contentious ones. Not sure there is this week really, apart from maybe Saka, but we'll go through that anyway. Then Dominic Solanke in fourth, which was a disappointing one. I bought him this week, so disappointing for me and my team. But his role kind of looks a bit interesting. He looks like a kind of false 9 almost. Not necessarily a false 9, but he's dropping quite deep, and the wingers are the ones that are kind of making runs from wide, almost like Liverpool back in the day when it was Firmino dropping and then Salah, Mane out wide. Not that they're quite the same. Not that I'm comparing them at all, but yeah, similar style anyway. Then Saka was fifth. Obviously he didn't play, but so got no points, but not much we can do about that. Spoke about Son. Foden again, yeah, if he was on 80 minutes, he'd have been third or fourth. He didn't start, so it was good. I guess I got it right that his minutes weren't up in the 80s or something. A lot of people thought he would start, but it's very tough to put Foden up in above 75 minutes really, because there's just always a very good chance that he's going to be benched. So again, this week, you can't really put his X minutes that high. Again, this week's one where I'll go through it when we look at Game Week 9 numbers, but if you think he starts and you think he gets quite a lot of minutes, he's right up there. But we'll talk about that anyway. He came on, got an assist from a corner. Pedro Porro, I never really expect much from defenders when they come up in here. There's a defender in the Game Week 9 numbers as well, and I don't really like that much, to be honest. A clean sheet is such a kind of almost random event that one goal obviously cancels it out and loses 4 points, so it's a very tough one. I suppose if there was going to be a defender that we thought would return pre-game week attacking wise, then it would have been Porro. So, and he did look good in the first half. He looked very attacking, although his role again has slightly changed from the start of the season. Maybe the model hasn't quite adapted to that, I don't know. But yeah, Rashford in ninth, he was probably one that was looked at and thought about kind of why is he in here, but that Brentford defence just isn't the best, so Brentford at home is going to be a good fixture, and even on 67 minutes Rashford was in here. He did get an assist, a lovely cross for Garnacho. So yeah, that was a green one. And then Anthony Gordon in 10th. Again, the model seems to like Brighton at home as a fixture. We'll see that again in Game Week 9. I think that appears. So or at least a Brighton fixture. But yeah, that one didn't come off. So 5 did come off, 5 didn't. Not the best week, especially as Haaland at number 1 blanked. But let's have a look at Game Week 9's numbers. Right, so as you can see, and as we expected, Haaland is top again. I'm not sure what I was talking about a minute ago where there's a Brighton fixture in here, because there isn't. But Haaland is obviously top with Southampton at home. We will talk about the triple captaincy at the end. I looked at what the Game Week 2 expected points was, so we can compare that, which was obviously Ipswich at home. So it was a very common week to play triple captaincy, so we'll compare the two. Palmer is in second. I've got his minutes at 84 still. I haven't changed them. It's just that risk of an earlier sub if Chelsea are performing well, like we saw against West Ham, for example. If they're 4-0 up, then there's always a chance he comes off early, but I think that will be quite rare, given that he won't need as much of a rest as others, as he is not in the European squad for Chelsea. But Newcastle at home is now being given as a not so bad fixture, which, if you watched any of my videos towards the start of the season, you know that I watched a lot of Newcastle at the start of the season for some reason, and they were just diabolical. So it's good to see that the model is kind of updating that, although it's probably mainly just because Palmer's fantastic, but still, it's not a bad fixture. And Bomo's in third, which is an interesting one. That actually makes all 3 of the top 3 this week players that blanked in Game Week 8, which is interesting. But Ipswich at home is, of course, a fantastic fixture. He wasn't as involved this week. He did have a striker playing instead of him kind of assuming some of that role. So he had Kevin Schade playing through the middle for most of the game, and then Wissa came back and he played up front for 30 minutes or so. So now that Wissa's back and Schade was playing through the middle, I'm sure we'll see Mbomo out on the right more so, which doesn't particularly make him a worse option. I think 88 minutes is still fine. He seems to just be playing a lot of minutes, and Ipswich at home is a great fixture. Foden, so this is another one. He's actually in 4th with 65 minutes, which suggests that if you think he starts, he probably gets quite good minutes. Probably gets at least 70, 75 minutes if he does start. So if you do believe he'll start, or if we get a leak he starts, I guess, might be unlikely, but if we get a leak that he starts, then he is much higher. He probably jumps into second. I haven't looked at the numbers, to be honest, if I put his X minutes higher, but I would be surprised if you put him to 75 minutes, I imagine he would jump into second, definitely third. So he's one to kind of look out for if we get a leak if you own him, or if you're planning on transferring Saka out, for example. Then we have Son on 80 minutes. His minutes could potentially be higher now that he is obviously back fit. He did come off early in the game against West Ham. I think that was because they'd kind of won the game by then and it was his first game back. We'll see about his minutes this week. I think 80's fine. I don't think he'll get a really early sub. So I do think that's fine. Werner is obviously not great. Looks like he's lacking in confidence a hell of a lot. So I'm not sure that he'll take too many minutes off of him. Then we have Salah in 6th. Obviously this Arsenal-Liverpool fixture isn't the best. That's the reason that Salah is so far down the list this week. It's rare that we'll see Salah not in the top 5, especially when he has such a high expected minutes. But obviously Arsenal away, Arsenal one of the best defences in the league, so it does make sense. And as I mentioned before about defenders in here, Gvardiol is in at number 7. Again, if there's going to be a fixture that he's going to be included, it's against a promoted team at home. So even on 76 minutes, he does make it in here. I've got him at 76 minutes. So again, I find it a bit difficult to put him any higher. If he starts, he's very, very unlikely to come off, obviously. But there's just always that risk that he won't start. He probably does start 6 out of 7 or something like that. But I can never have him at the likes of 85 expected minutes just because there is that chance he doesn't start. So if you think I've got that slightly wrong, then maybe do let me know in the comments. But I think given that there is that small chance that he doesn't start, I think between 75 and 80 minutes is probably okay. Then Saka was a difficult one with the expected minutes as well. I think he isn't one that many people will be thinking of captaining, so his expected minutes probably don't matter too much. I've got him at 65. Obviously, he's got Liverpool at home, not the best fixture. The fact it's at home is probably the only reason he's actually featuring in this list. Liverpool defence has obviously been fantastic. XG-wise, or XGC-wise, it's been the best in the league so far. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think we're captaining him anyway, but I've got him at 65. Obviously, there'll be a press conference from Arteta before game week 9. Not that that usually helps us much, but you can adjust your own expected minutes based on that. If it is quite likely he's out, then obviously he drops out of this top 10 completely. But yeah, then we have Ollie Watkins. As I mentioned before on these captaincy videos, it doesn't rate forwards very highly, apart from obviously Haaland, and there is the odd week where someone like Isak or Havertz has been quite high, but Watkins has been typically quite low. Obviously, Bournemouth at home this week isn't an unbelievable fixture like an Ipswich at home for Mbomo or Southampton at home for Haaland, but it's not a particularly bad one either. So, and again, he is a slightly more difficult one in expected minutes. Obviously, at the start of the season, he was coming off around the 60-70 minute mark. Now he's getting a lot more, but obviously they do have the Champions League games, so it's tough to predict his expected minutes around them games. It's probably actually potentially a little bit high, given that I think it's more likely that he gets subbed off in this game with the Champions League midweek. So bear that in mind. And then Bruno Fernandes makes the list again. Obviously, we've seen this season the West Ham defence has been pretty diabolical. So Fernandes on penalties and playing 90 minutes, it's unsurprising that he is quite high up this list. Now, the one thing that is important for this week, obviously it's Southampton at home for Haaland, and as single game weeks go, that is about as good as it gets. So, like people did in game week 2, people are obviously thinking about the triple captaincy chip. So, in terms of the expected points for game week 2, Haaland was 7.54. So, pretty much identical to this week, which makes triple captaincy of a definite viable option. I mean, there's no guarantee that you're going to get the 17 points or even anything close to what people did in game week 2, but as single game weeks go, this is pretty much as good as it gets. So if you do think you will want to use your triple captaincy in a single game week, I would strongly consider using it this week. I probably won't be using it myself, just because I want to know a bit more about the double game week layout or plans going forward. So this mystery chip might not be something that we want to use in the double game week, so there may be a spare double game week for the triple captaincy. Also, this is a bit more of a confusing reason, but one other thing that I'm thinking is I like to use the triple captaincy chip as a way to, how do I explain this? Later in the season, if my rank is relatively low or high and I want to take that extra risk, then I can go for a much lower owned player on triple captaincy. Whereas if I want to kind of consolidate the rank I'm at, then I can go with someone safe where most other people will be playing it. At the moment, I don't know what risk appetite I'll want to be taking this early on, given that I won't know what my rank is in 20 game weeks time. So I think that holding the triple captaincy chip for that reason is probably what I'll do. But like I say, if you want to use it in a single game week, this is probably as good a week as you are going to get. There is obviously Salah, who is yet to face a couple of promoted teams at home, so there will be others, but this is definitely one to consider. Anyway, that's all for this one. If you liked it, make sure you drop a like, make sure you do subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.